Hello, everybody. My name is Dom of X, comicrelease.com associate editor. And today, for the first time ever on this live stream, at least by a different title, I would like to introduce my fantastic Eisner nominated co host. And he is, of course, Kurtis Finley of Clover Press. How are you doing, my friend?
Thank you so much, Tom. I'm doing great. Yeah, man, it's been a wild couple of weeks there. Yeah, Oscar nomination for some of the work that I did at Clover Press, in particular the book called The Marvel Art of Michael Allred. If you out there listening are registered with the Eisner Awards to be a voter, then yes, I would appreciate the vote for best publication design. I think voting is running until like June 5th or something like that. One more week. So get out there and vote. Vote for all your other friends in there as well. But I'd love a vote for the Marvel art of Michael Allred.
Indeed. I say this because your work on the designs of the art of the for the Marvel books, very clean, great aesthetic, and very pleasant to look at, which is typically what you want out of a comic. But it's just super cool. Well, not only to have a friend who has been pushed out for something like this, but your hard work and the dedication that you put in to all of the projects that you work on. I mean, it's clear and it shows. So I wanted to congratulate you live on air, just as much as all of the others who might be listening for sure.
Thanks, Tom. I appreciate it. And thank you to everybody in the chat for your congratulations as well. I do appreciate all of that too.
Indeed, Carson says, congratulations. We got a hello from Batman Noms. No more food jokes. We will kill Tim Drake instead. That's also partly a joke. But that is okay. We have, I think, enough of those on Reddit, and the message has been pushed out. And no Robin compendiums this stream, because this is not a compendium stream. This is a DC Finest stream. Just for placing already in that out there. And have
We can talk
Omar.
about it.
Yes.
We'll talk about it next month when we talk about the Robin DC
Oh, we
Finest.
will for sure, because I think we will have more stuff to say about that in all light and detail. And have Omar and Dom had the talk about his role in Jason Todd's death. We had a brief conversation about it during, I think it was the DC, when we went over the fall 2025 catalog, which this DC Finest was a part of, and we'll get to it when we get to the Robin, the death in the family of it all. Edwin, good morning to you. Another month and more great DC Finest. Hope you are doing well, friend. There he is, Phil Owens. How are you doing, sir? Hope you're doing well. And yeah, now I want Red Robin, Kurtis. Like this is not like, even despite the Y word. We'll call it the Y word from now on. It has made me want a burger. But it is
I had
indeed.
no idea that there was already a running joke about that. I should have guessed though, because the name is very obvious.
It is, and it's been a running joke in the DC Comics subreddit, at least for as long as I can remember. But it's been just say it's been a while, and we'll keep it at that. Yarne, I hope you're doing well. Glad to have you here this morning. Of it all, as I got a text from Omar. What's this about? Oh, thank you, Omar. All right, Nicola, Ultra Mega Nicola. Okay, I haven't seen you in a while live. I hope you're doing well as well. Let's see if we can run on. And again, thank you to James for providing all of the links as well. See, this is what you get now, Kurtis. We got the tag that's always going to stick now, no matter what, which I think is pretty cool.
Well, hopefully it'll change to Eisner Award winning, but we'll see. I've got
Yes,
some pretty steep
yes.
competition.
Let's get it on, guys. Let's get it on. Of course, you can check out cr.com, Patreon, and the Discord there as well. Darth Julius, hopefully you're doing okay. Favorite Friday of the month, and we're also back on schedule too. We've had a couple of months where we've run behind, but we are also there. You're you're going to have to give Eisner nominee Kurtis a raise now, Dom. What's the conversion rate from USD to CAD?
I don't
Would
know,
be
just double whatever it is that
just
you're
just
giving me
double.
now.
Okay, we'll
Yeah.
double and a half of it. We'll throw in a burger there so he can have a good
Okay.
lunch at Red Robin. Yeah. Let's see. Yeah, indeed. Congrats from I Am Done with Life. Got the Batman and Western last month. Curious on the Joker book. We have stuff to say about that. I know MP definitely also has stuff to say about the Batman book. One of the smartest people I know of the Batman world. Glad
Oh,
to have,
wow.
yeah, glad to have you here on the stream, MP. Just saw Jewish Contract is available again, at least being out of print for a short bit, at least from the EU. And Far Sender, happy to see you. Good morning. Did you guys see that the DC Finest books, at least some of them, have released on DC Universe Infinite, with more to come? I think it's awesome.
Yeah, if only they had that Flash book up there when I was wanting to read it.
Someday, Far Sender, and also Kurtis. I remember when Omar announced it yesterday. I think the hope that I want for the DC Finest books are to get all of them available through Kindle and also other online vendors, because I think having it digitized would be a nice option. Marvel does it for every single one of their books, not even just the smaller trade paperbacks, but also the omnibuses. I know that digital is not for everybody, but it is a nice avenue to use if the book has been long out of print, or if you want to sample before actually getting it on your shelf, as we know how expensive these things can get. So the hope is that we can get more in the future. And with that, Kurtis, are you ready to roll and rumble with the first of our DC Finest over for the month of April?
Yes, which one are we doing first?
We, I think, are going to do. Let's go through publication order. We're going to start off with the I believe, yes, this is Western. The Hangman Never Loses, as a part of the first in a hopefully long line of Western titles. And with the inclusion of a character, I think it also would signal to us how DC is going to push this character going forward for his specific Finest line, if he was ever going to get one. This DC Finest Western book is going to collect Weird Western Tales, issues 12 through 17, All-Star Western 2 through 8, and issues 10 through 11, Super DC Giant S15, along with Tomahawk, issues 130 through 140, along with all of the covers from All-Star Western issues number 1 and number 9, along with the covers to Super DC Giant S14 and S22. And this, as much as the war, the science fiction, the I'm blanking, the horror DC Finest, all of those being more genre lines which collect a cumulative amount of stories placed together, rather than a single, we have All-Star Comics or something like of the sort, where it's just one universal line for one title. What they're doing is they are again pushing through with a just a whole bunch of these issues, a whole bunch of these stories placed into one again instead of the singular. So you have a whole bunch of characters who are also featured in here. We briefly get introduced to Tomahawk, or Tom Hawk, who is this sort of frontiersman who served in the U.S. Continental Army, and the series starting in 1950. But we have only that one issue of him being there until we transition to his son, and his son is the son of Tomahawk, who takes up a majority of the stories in the Tomahawk line for this specific DC Finest. Also in this, we also have the character's outlaw, Rick Wilson, who we also learned that he wants to join the Texas Rangers, who are under his father, and he sort of looks up to his father and says, man, I really want to be a part of this larger group being on the frontier. Unfortunately, that doesn't happen. His dad shoots him, and he becomes the outlaw. We also get introduced to El Diablo, who is an Avenger, formerly known as Lazarus Lane, who is struck by lightning, not too dissimilar from Barry Allen in the way that he was also struck by lightning, helped out by the Wowzow, and he wants to help protect people under that moniker, albeit with a little bit of a scary look. And of course, most of, I think, the attention here, probably rightfully so, would be seeing us go through the first appearances of Jonah Hex, who I think is, well, by far the most popular of the entire group here, as part of this specific genre over at DC. And he also is introduced into these stories. You have a whole bunch of differentiating tones and also storytelling feats. You have some of these issues that require you to read vertically, like the stories make you get to read vertical. You get to learn about people in American Western history, if you will, or frontiers history, where you get to learn about actual characters or actual people like Billy the Kid. And I find this, I don't know about you, Kurtis, but I found this to be a very surprising read, even if I will admit some of the subject matter is a little bit, maybe a tad bit outdated, if only for the messaging. But otherwise, I had a lot of fun with this book in ways that I actually didn't manage to expect. So, what are your thoughts on it?
I had some fun with this one too. Like you said, it's a big grab bag, and not all of the stories are great, but a lot of them are. And you have a top-notch group of writers and artists on here. What I really appreciated from an art standpoint is that this is a book that's grounded in realism. So, no monsters, no aliens, no outer space and spaceships or flying or, superpowers. It's all like really down to earth settings in the Wild West and people who are just supposed to look like normal people. Yes, even Jonah Hex. So they had to get artists who don't necessarily exaggerate body tones to give super muscular looks and all that kind of stuff. And they picked really, really great artists on here. And so some of my favorites here, Joe Kubert gets a lot of love early on in the book here, and
Yep.
his work is always great. And um and then also Frank Thorne gets does a lot of the Son of Tomahawk stories. And I know him from Marvel because he did the Red Sonja stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And but his artwork is very, very different in that, and I think probably because of the inker. And his artwork through this book, um, I believe he's inking
I
himself,
think you're
and
right.
he has a very similar inking style to Joe Kubert. So his work looks very similar to Joe's through this book. I found that very interesting, and it's really, really good. And both Joe and Frank in this book have a look that's very similar to Alex Toth. And
Yep.
I'm a huge Alex Toth fan, and he gets a story in here, and so to have you have that little consistency throughout the book of that style, but then you also get other stuff like I think Gil Kane also has a very similar inking style to those guys. So there's they all kind of look very, very similar. But who else is in here?
Tony De Zuniga, which I'm actually surprised they didn't place him on the front of this particular book. I think with the creation of Jonah Hex and whatnot.
Yeah. Um, how do you pronounce his name? I always said DeZuniga. Tony DeZuniga.
I'll take yours because I absolutely
Zuniga?
stink
Zuniga?
at pronunciating names. So
I mean,
I'll refer
I've
to you.
never I've never heard his name said out loud, so I don't know. But yeah, there's Neil Adams,
Hmm.
there is Sonny Trinidad, who's amazing. I think Gray Morrow does some of the
Hmm.
stories in here, right?
Yep.
Bernie, oh, and they're just Alfredo Alcala does some stories. Yeah, it's just the artwork in this is just stellar. Every single issue is on fire. John Severin. Yeah, yeah. And so very, very good. If you want to get it for that story, from that standpoint, it's got page after page of glorious, glorious art. Um, the stories, like you said, they are dated. Of course, the one of the biggest tropes in Western storytelling is the battle against Indians or Native
Hmm.
Americans that during this time as the frontier people kind of came in and were taking over and claiming land. And and we get a mixed bag of the way that these characters are portrayed.
Hmm.
Sometimes we get like it's always kind of shrouded in stereotypes and stuff. They use some outdated terms and slurs and such, but a lot of the time they're actually the characters, the heroes of the story are coming to the defense of the Native American tribes that they're talking about, and and a lot of the times the Native American tribes are also helping out the heroes of the story. So they're working in tandem. And that's similar to like, the Davy Crockett stories that Disney was doing as well. The Davy Crockett was a huge advocate for Native American rights. And so um it's just really interesting to see. One of the stories that stood out to me, so the story of T Son of Tomahawk is that Tomahawk himself is a white guy who was I believe he was raised by Native Americans,
Yep.
right?
Hmm.
And so he's got a lot of the skills that are inherited by the ancestors and such. And then he has a son with a Native American woman. And so Son of Tomahawk is a mixed race. And one of the stories in there, this one white guy who goes by the name Scalp Hunter decides to go after all of the Native Americans he can find and scalp them all in as a revenge for the way that I think that they killed his wife. And so he wants to, and he's doing what is the stereotypical move that Native Americans have been portrayed to do, is scalp their victims. He wants to do that in return. And so he goes after Son of Tomahawk. And Son of Tomahawk, what's his name? I can't even remember his name. What's that character's name? Like his real name. I don't remember.
It's
But he says, why is this guy after me? Because I'm not Native American. And his dad says, well, actually, yes, you are. Um, Even though you're like he doesn't use the term because this is a more modern term, but white presenting,
hmm
even though you're white presenting,
right.
you're still Native
Native
American.
American.
And I I kind of related to that because I also am mixed race.
Hmm.
My mom's side is historically Chinese, and my dad's side is historically a mix of European, including English and Scottish and Czechoslovakian. And so, and I feel that often as well. It's like was raised in Canada, born and raised in Canada,
Hmm.
in a very, European influenced society, and I don't see myself as Chinese, but visibly I have a lot of those characteristics. And so, and yeah, and it doesn't stop from people using those
Hmm.
slurs or, treating me in a very racist way or whatever. But, and so I felt this guy's, what this guy was trying to say is like, you live in both worlds and that, um, you get racism from both sides. And it was interesting, very interesting to
Yeah.
me to have that story in here, written in the 70s.
Hmm.
Um, so that's my thoughts on let's take these characters one at a time. What are your thoughts on Son of Tomahawk? What did you think of those stories in particular?
I also found it weird that there's a part of me that looks at this because like most of the experience that I've had in talking or like with teachers telling me about Native Americans typically didn't have even if going through a private school slurs thrown in. I was just surprised at the amount of times that they were referred to as Indians or as something else completely, and they're not altered in any particular fashion at all in the book, at least from what I've seen.
Mm.
I also managed to happen to like I always like seeing how people like you sort of like bring down the differences between the person who was, you know, in charge of the book, and then how somebody who comes after him, still the same book, how do they deal with the sort of the same problems and same issues that the other person was going through. I really liked the character, and I also liked his, you know, seeing here the relationship between I think Moonfawn. Moonfawn is his mom's name, or Tomahawk's wife's name, and I think over like just getting to see how somebody uh, deals with frontiersmen and dealing with you know, Native American heritage, even if the stories are like some of the stories I just found to be, you know, quite decent, but I like the character of Son of Tomahawk more, um more than I think most of the stories. At least from my experience. um I I think where I'm trying to place you know, to place my words on it. I think there's a story where it's during Christmas time, or you know, during the holiday season, and you know, they manage to, hey, look at this, like you're talking about it being a beacon of hope. You have you know, talking about, hey, like, you know, can we finally have a day of peace? The frontiersmen all involved. Um, I like seeing stories that deal with peace and being able to you know, there's a lot of conflict in the Western world, or the, you know, the Western plains, and you have the last line here: Christmas snow is just like a clean page on which a man can write peace to all, or his own epitaph, and you get to see someone who
So
died.
beautiful.
Yeah, but it's great. It's stuff like that, I think, that makes makes these character like stories around this character strong. Um,
Yeah, and I think that's a hallmark of Westerns in general. Like if you watch Western movies and
mhm.
such, is there's a lot of really great poetry throughout, not just like spoken or written, but just the mood of the town, or the way the story unfolds is all poetic. Man, the have you ever seen The Searchers, the John Wayne movie?
My dad has, but I have not.
Okay, you got to check that out. It's so good.
Love.
And there's a lot of westerns. Westerns were really prolific in early Hollywood just because they were easy to make, because you didn't have to rely on a lot of effects and all that kind of stuff. But the Searchers is one of the best. That's one I really like that movie.
I will. I've got Count of Monte Cristo, and I've got Searchers, John Wayne movie, now on my list from Curtis. I have to get to him at some point. I will admit, like, there is a part of me that, you know, because a lot of these stories, I wasn't a big Western guy as a kid. I remember I remember being the only kid in my kindergarten class, and everybody else was, you know, we had like a Western day. I only had a cowboy hat on, and I felt like so out of place comparatively to everybody else. And I'm like, man, am I ever going to get to Westerns in my life? You know, granted, I never did. So a lot of these stories, again, like these, this is the first time that I'm reading it. Um, I just never had the experience of actually going through and seeing, oh, this is how Westerns are like, because it never got to, I guess, got to me through that point. But it's nice to see that, like, a lot of these, like you mentioned, uh, there's poetry to it. There is an aspect of, like, yeah, these things don't rhyme, but you get to see like parallelisms and whatnot, like portrayed through all of these stories. So I find that really cool.
Yeah. Okay, how about El Diablo? What did you think of that character?
He's so weird, man. He's this Avenger vibe. Like I mentioned earlier, he's a guy got struck by lightning, and manages to, you know, like find different. He's the man who comes into the thick of night. You know, I like the differences, at least because a lot of the stories with him also manage to overlap with Outlaw, right? You have Outlaw, who does a lot of his stuff by day. El Diablo is a guy who comes in the nighttime. I like the fact that, at least from what again, maybe I'm reading it wrong. Um, he's more of a man of action. He's not somebody who is, very talkative. He goes about, people are usually talking to him, and if he needs to, whether it's, avenging somebody, or helping out, a woman, or like something of that sort, um he just does it. He's not somebody who is babbling about like a Peter Parker. He is, just tonally, he's very different from all of the different characters that we have in this book. And a
Yeah.
lot of these, like, they're surprised that, like, oh, we didn't think that this was a person you are. I'm looking through, one of these stories, just trying to, because it's been a while since I've read through the finest. You've got like some of these endings where, like, he's talking with this woman who just tells, like, hey, I need help on this particular thing. You're fit to take my father's spot. And he decides to ram about, I'll just say, kill a person. And the next thing you know, she's like, "Well, I didn't expect you to be like this person at all." Like, and he says, "I will haunt you forever." And he's already cursed, and there's nothing that you can do about it. I like the
Yeah.
fact that he doesn't pull any, like, he is somebody who is willing to punch or take out somebody without like any repercussions, and I find that part about his character particularly strong.
There's one story where some guys break into his house. Um, and he's sitting there in front of his fire, in front of the fire. And this is in the evening. The sun's already gone down, and he's there with his I can't remember if it's his wife or his girlfriend or whatever, but um they try to rob him, and he just sits there and he just doesn't say anything.
Mhm.
And he doesn't give them the time of day. He doesn't look at them. He just sits there, and they get really aggravated. And then their attention is taken away for a split second, and he's gone. And he switches into his costume, and he takes them all out. And it's like, it's like, so. Zorro was huge
Mhm.
in the 50s, and some of the 60s as well. And even though this is the 70s, I have no doubt that this is influenced by Zorro. Absolutely, 100%. The costume and everything very, very similar. The only difference here, and it's a big difference, is that Zorro was always a suave, smooth talker, and he'd have his one-liners and he'd woo the ladies and such. And this El Diablo is not like that. He's way more like he's just Batman basically of the Wild West. And it is good because it's a really good counterpoint to a lot of the other stories. Like you said, there's a lot of variety here, and this one offers, this is about as big of a superhero character as you're gonna get in the Westerns. And it works well. You got some really good artists on there as well doing those stories.
I agree. I want to know, like, he there. This is my sound, because I think we both have a lot of, good things to say about Jonah Hex. I actually found the character of Outlaw to be the most interesting. I love family drama whenever it's brought up, just because I like seeing, the soap opera bits of it, getting to see people, clash over. You have him again. You want him to sort of like join his dad's group. He is, like, he's got strong familial ties with sister, and all of a sudden, like, life completely turns on him, and all that his dad wants to do is find him and gun him down. So you have all of these stories where he's trying to blend in the background and just trying to get to his dad, but his dad won't listen. I don't know if you found the character particularly strong. I think I had the most fun stories with him, less so for the, maybe, the emotional effects of you seeing sort of yourself in Hawk, or the Son of Tomahawk, and more so like, oh wait, this somebody here has a lot of emotional baggage to him because he's no longer accepted by the people who loved him growing up, and he has to deal with that on the run for the rest of his life.
Yeah, I agree. I really liked Outlaw as well. I think that that whole family dynamic, it makes it more intense because there's way more at stake. Whereas Jonah Hex, he comes in and just, blows away the bad guys or whatever. The it's it's the Roadrunner and Coyote type chase that you get from the father and son. That the father never quite gets the son, and the son always gets away. But there's that tension there, and there's the strong pull of like, I really want to be back with my family, but I have no place with my family anymore. Um, yeah, really, really strong. And those are the Joe Kubert stories, right? I'm
You're
trying to
correct.
remember
Yep.
if those are the
I
ones. Outlaw.
Jim.
Oh no, that's
That's Jim Aparo. Jim Aparo, right?
okay. I think a bunch of different artists probably did them over time,
Mhm.
um, yeah, it's great drama. Those stories were excellent.
Did you think the same for Billy the Kid? Who I always think of Billy the Kid as an actual, like he was an actual American historical figure, who was in the Wild West in the 1800s. I had no idea that DC had a version, a fictional version of this person who gets his dad and he's murdered, and now he's trying to find that person on the trail. And the whole
Hmm.
story literally just becomes him. Again, I feel like I've said Avengers a billion times. Might as well make this a Marvel book. But all of the stories are focused on him trying to hunt his dad's killer so that he can, bring back semblance to his name, and finally get to a point where he feels like he has reclamation over the situation.
Yeah, those so I think Billy the Kid, those stories were probably the weakest of all
I
of the characters, but not to say that they were bad though. They just weren't as strong. Um, I didn't really find any standouts through the ones that
mhm.
through the ones that I read.
I feel like he is very much very much fine. It's more so again like just me being surprised that, oh wait, Billy the Kid is in the DC universe and it's not just a
Yeah.
swill whatever teaser. Yeah, we also have a lot of like Gil Kane stories in here as well. Like Gil Kane both on writing and on art featuring a different story. I think it was Bill Hickok, I think is how you say his name.
Wild Bill Hickok,
Yeah,
yeah.
Wild Bill Hickok, another gunslinging mojo man who gets introduced into the All Star stories as well. I would love to know the
He's a
back.
historical figure too, I believe.
You'll be correct.
Yeah.
Again, so I'm just surprised that DC. I have no idea how licenses or any of these things work, and this is before we had the copyright of, like characters having similar names to actual historical figures or like real life figures might be coincidental. Uh,
Well, I mean, I think at that point, those characters are all public domain because they've been dead for a long time. So I don't think that they had to worry about licenses or anything. It's like if you wanted to do a comic on Abraham Lincoln, you're more than welcome to do it.
that's what Matt Rosenberg's doing right now. He has an creator owned comic at Image where the main character is an animatronic Abraham Lincoln.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. There's a one season cartoon called Clone High. Have you ever heard of that
I've
before?
heard of it
It's
before, but I've
it's
never. Yeah.
pretty funny. I watched it when it first came out, and it stars clones of Abraham Lincoln, Joan of Arc, Gandhi, Cleopatra, and JFK, and they're all in high school together in a place called
Oh,
Clone High, and it's really funny.
the jokes that you could throw around with that. I mean, that's pulling punches from five different eras of human history.
Yeah, it's really good.
That's crazy. Okay, I mean I've heard of it, but I guess I have to, again I have to add it to my list of what I need to watch at some point. We also had Davy Crockett in these stories too. Like we had Davy Crockett and Buffalo Bill, uh, also thrown in too. So I guess like
Yep.
DC, they were not afraid of putting in actual real life historical figures. And we again, like, we saw a whole spread page of who James was and what his role in frontiersman history is. Um, this also, I will say, this also coincidentally lined up because I took an upper division class on U.S. history over last semester, and this managed to come out at the same time that we talked about Theodore Roosevelt with him and the Rough Riders in the late 1800s. So I'm like, wow, there's a lot of historical overlap here that I can't really ignore. You want to talk about Jonah Hex, even if only for a bit, Kurtis? Because I feel like we haven't talked about him maybe as much as
Yes,
we
so
should.
um, Jonah Hex, Jonah Hex, those are really exciting stories. He's an interesting character because he's a force that can't be stopped. And he's just a wanderer, and all of those aspects remind me of things like, Japanese samurai stories and that
Mhm.
kind of thing, right? And you get that kind of aspect from this as well. A great art as well. And I like that first issue, the very first story where the half of his face is in shadows for like the entire time until the moment where you see that he's scarred. And it's not even a particularly like dramatic moment or whatever. It's like, well, what's the big deal with this guy with the scars on his face? But but it's good. They get his voice like down right away to give him a very unique sounding character compared to all of the other characters that are in this book. And you get some good stories. Yeah, my question is Jonah Hex a strong enough name that they will give him his own DC Finest, or will his stories just always be in these Western compilations?
I think his name can definitely stand out on his. I mean, we've seen an all-star Western Omni with his name slapped on, right, for the New 52. But
Okay.
I don't know if DC wants to double dip amongst these stories. I think we're just going to stick with westerns. Um,
Hmm.
for name's sake, it will give them an opportunity to not worry about hampering sales on two different, because I think Jonah Hex, market wise, has a much bigger audience than some of these other characters. Like, again, like that first that I got exposed to. Like, for the regular viewer, regular reader, they might not be interested in, say, oh, I want to read a Billy the Kid DC Finest or Outlaw DC Finest, or let's get all 100 plus issues of Tomahawk in one. And I don't know if that's
Mm.
going to be I don't know if that's going to be within their sales range. I think they're going to keep the Western strictly Western and just manage to
Yeah.
have a whole bunch of Jonah Hex in it.
So, but there's a point where, like, there's a point with all of the American comics where they just stop doing Westerns. It's just not a viable thing anymore. So there's an end point to the Western books,
Mm-hmm.
but then Jonah Hex himself has series after that. So maybe if they're going to do a Jonah Hex DC Finest, they would start there and move forward. It's like they're not publishing these volumes in order anyway, so they
Right,
could just put out one of those other books.
right. I can totally see that being feasible too, because like you mentioned, Jonah is a more than big enough cult favorite, fan favorite, to withstand. Oh, hey, we're going to collect the Jimmy Palmiotti and Justin Gray 2005 series and move on forward with it. And that could definitely sell on its own. But we also have post-crisis versions of these characters as well. And I'm also thinking to myself, well, if we do see somebody like any of these characters I mentioned or other characters with that fit that sort of frame, throw that in there. And if they're not going to leave any stones unturned, like we've seen with the Batman DC Finest, where they're including these graphic novels we're going to get to talk about in a minute, I can also totally see them keeping Western as that and saying, hey, we don't have to keep this to Jonah Hex. Maybe we can throw in a random issue of
Right.
this
Yeah.
in there. So I can totally see both happening for sure.
I guess it just depends on how they want to brand it because branding it just generic Western
Mm-hmm.
is probably not as easy of a sale as a known character like Jonah Hex, who has a visual component to his look and all that kind of stuff.
All
Um,
this, all
now
this to say,
we've
go.
s- we- we've seen war, the war books as well. It'll be because they I don't think did we have any Sergeant Rock stories in the war
Nope.
volume? No, so we don't know how they're going to handle that as well. Obviously Sergeant Rock is getting his own DC Finest. It comes out in a couple weeks.
It
Or is it
came
out
out.
already? It's out already.
Came out. Yep.
And so if they're going to put the Sergeant Rock stuff in the war books, there's going to be a lot of double dipping there as well. And the same could be said for other prominent DC war characters like Unknown Soldier and Haunted Tank and um I don't know, a
Hmm.
bunch of other ones.
Right.
They could have all spun them off into their own series probably. The war ones have better name draw than these Western characters, that's for sure.
They do. They do for sure. And I definitely agree with that. Like, I think a lot of people would rather read, like, hey, we got a random tank rolling around instead of Tomahawk. People are interested in this character. No offense to the Tomahawk fans out there. I thoroughly enjoyed a lot of that character. I think it's just a wait and see. It's also, I think it'll be telling to see what they decide to do on the next front, whether they do manage to push in all the Western characters into one, or if, just like Sergeant Rock, we managed to get a teasing Jonah Hex slip in at some point. So it'll be interesting to see for sure. I think what I
The other
worry.
option
Yes, go ahead.
the other option is put the Jonah Hex stuff in DC Western
Hmm.
and then wait 7 years or whatever until those books are out of print, and then they can reprint that material as a Jonah Hex in the Jonah Hex
Hmm.
DC Finest.
That would be fun. I think what we're both trying to say is we want that 2005 run put in DC for finest format. I think that's what we're trying to say.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I think just to overall sum it up, because I think it's very clear that we both enjoyed these stories. Where would you rank this in terms of in terms of the genre books that we've gotten so far from DC?
Well, that's a good question. I still think surprisingly science fiction is the weakest out of all of
I
them.
agree.
I just didn't enjoy that book really. Horror still stands at the top as my favorite of the genre books. War and Western, man, there's so much to love about both of them. I might put Western above War, actually. I'd have to think about that. That's a good question. But my gut tells me that I think I enjoyed Western more than War.
If only for the art.
That could be, yeah.
For
Although
sure.
War had some great art in it too.
War had a fantastic art too. We will maybe have to come back to that front if we ever do get more of these volumes.
Yeah, I just want a DC Finest humor volume to
Oh
come
man,
out.
I'd love to
That
get
would be
some of
fun.
those strips. Yeah, and for those who are watching now, over because Christ has talked about it on the our top 60 show. I will also share some information for the upcoming DC Finest poll. See what I can tell you guys about that, but want to see what you guys are also saying about that book. Yeah, Carson says, so it's that Clover Press you're working for, Kurtis. I'm thinking about funding the DC art of Michael Turner on Kickstarter.
Yeah, that one's gonna launch soon. That's gonna be a good book. We did a Marvel art of Michael Turner, so this is kind of a companion volume to that, and it's gonna be great. He
And
did a lot more work for DC than he did with Marvel, so there's a
uh,
lot more art to choose from.
Superman, Batman, Supergirl. He did a lot, man. That guy did a lot of covers for DC.
A lot of covers.
A lot of covers. Far Sender also talked about disabilities as well. Legally blind and digital is easier for me to read.
That's a great point.
I
Yeah.
agree. I agree. Uh, that was before you were an Eisner nominee, Curtis. So they know you were an Eisner nominee. They'd put the Flash book up, especially for you, I'm sure, on DC Universe
Talking
Infinite.
about DC Finest on DC Infinite. Right.
Yeah, great art in the Western book. Really surprised me. A lot of fun stories. Got it mostly for the Jonah Hex stories, and that's I think the greatest part about this too, where you see maybe it's the Neil Adams cover on the front from All Star Western issue #5, and you're thinking to yourself, man, you also got the first appearance of Jonah Hex. I love this. Let me just say, I can't. Maybe I the lighting isn't too great on this, but I freaking love this panel.
Yeah.
Where he's just filled with anger, and I love seeing character out of my characters. But that's the hope that you get with these, right? It's you see year one, and then you go, wait, there are other stories around it that are also great that I want to get a chance to read too. And I think that's been the strongest thing about these finest so far, for certain. Already bought it, looking forward to reading it. The start of the book can get a little confusing. Way too many different characters are all called Hawk. It does pop up.
Yeah.
Hawk and Avenger. I think they're making a run for their money. I need to read all. I need to get to read all the other issues of Weird Western Tales. The end of the book is definitely the best part of the book for me. I think like it is for a lot of people. Tending a garden fire. I hope that your plants are okay. Part where comics reader. Jonah Hex, the human who looks stranger than most extraterrestrials. But I think you could also say the same thing about Harvey Dent as Two-Face Karsten. So who is the more strange of those two if you were to put them in the same room?
Now Two-Face has different color skin, so I think that works against him.
That's also fair. The art is just sensational. Frank Thorne, Neil Adams, Alex Toth. You've also got. I'm not gonna say Tony's last name because I butchered it so bad. I think that I need to get kicked off this planet. We got Gil Kane, Joe Kubert. It's got great stuff. You got Jim Aparo too. 70s DC is good. Congratulations to Kurtis from John 678.
Thanks, John.
Busy month, 2 Wonder Woman and a Lantern Finest, JLA Book 3, plus extra DC 1 million issues, Titans and Nightwing Compendiums, 3 Excalibur and Kill Evan Rape. That's a lot of reading, man. That is a lot of reading. So many conflicts could have been avoided in those old westerns if only the town was big enough for the both of them.
I know. Yeah, it's a lot of small-minded people is what it is. Their minds need to be a little bit bigger.
I agree. I completely agree on that front. Both Union Jack minis and all of Astro City. That's a lot of reading, but Farmer's Comics reader, you got to teach me on how I can more efficiently, well, not maybe more efficiently, just overall have a bigger capacity of reading, because I like this month was finals month for me, Kurtis. I felt like at moments I was going to collapse with the amount of information that I needed to withhold in my head. But alas, I should probably, yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm not gonna say the guy's list. I have no idea how to say it. I know how to spell it. I don't know how to say it. Mistook Bill Drought's artwork for Alex Toth until I checked the contents page. My only gripe with the book: no gorillas in the Old West. But that's more of a gripe for the Old West, really.
I've been looking because I've been posting gorilla pictures on the Facebook group, and the last several DC finest just haven't had any gorillas. I haven't posted a gorilla picture in a while.
I know.
I'm very disappointed. Come on, DC.
Come on. We don't even get to see Gorilla Grodd in the Joker book that we're going to be talking about later.
Yeah, not at all.
No. Yeah, they were really smart in choosing these specific years to collect the first Western volume. I heard great things about that Son of Tomahawk material, plus the Jonah Hex El Diablo material.
Yep.
Yeah. Also, this being the early 70s, as the stories are more gritty and progressive than, say, hokey 50s material.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, that really helps for sure.
Even if I still think that some of the subject material and the terms are outdated, I can agree on the front of, oh wait, they're not all Native Americans are bad and we need to push them out. That's actually something that I appreciated from this volume. Hawk, Son of Tomahawk, Scalp Hunter, later used by James Robinson as an early Opal City Sheriff, and reincarnation as a couple of later characters in Starman. That is indeed true, and that's why I said, mentioned earlier, you have post-crisis versions of these characters that might just get tossed into a Western whenever they decide or deem to say it so. Smotherly Lion 04, Kurtis just wondering when we might see soft covers for better or for worse. And...
Oh yeah. We're working on it. We've got a lot on our plate at the moment, so it's not gonna come this year, possibly 2027 though.
2027? Okay, sounds good. Thank you for the information on that. Oh, Brian McQuarrie, thank you so much for the super chat. I've been reading DC Comics since 1977. Hearing two fans not only talk about but enjoy these older DC titles really makes me happy. Keep a shining light on the forgotten tales of decades gone by. Really, really appreciate that. For a lot of this, again, like for me, this is the first time that I've ever delved into reading this material, so I'm mostly unfamiliar with a lot of these characters and these stories. But it's something that I have definitely learned to appreciate as time has moved on. But I really, really do appreciate it. We both appreciate your time. In the first half of the book, Son of Tomahawk stories are definitely stronger than the Vigilante ones, which were pretty bland. I think I can agree with that. Yeah, different scalp hunter. Jay Passan, hello, just joined now. What bookcases do you have, Kurtis?
So it's all IKEA Billy bookcases. I use the half width ones so that the shelves don't bend under the pressure of all that paper.
Mm-hmm.
And then on either side of me, I've got the Kallax for the books that are wider, who need it, like because I have a lot of these comic strip books
Mm-hmm.
that are all really wide and landscape, and they don't fit on the Billy bookcases all the way. They stick out some, so you got to get the Kallax ones so that you can get them all the way on the shelf.
I like the way that it's angled too. I like that diagonal bookshelf of yours, Curtis.
Yeah, it's to fit the space. It goes around. It goes around these three walls.
I like that. Searchers is an awesome movie. Definitely a must see. Okay, I have to get to it at some point, guys. I'll get to it. Maybe I am. For those who are in the unknown, I'm going to be going to Japan next week. So maybe I can watch it on the plane. Do something while if I'm not playing on my Switch. So
There you go.
keep it in
Totally.
mind. Keep it in mind.
That would be good.
Yeah, everybody agrees. Watch the Searcher. Everybody says watch the Searchers. Okay, I might have to now. I liked how gothic El Diablo was. For sure. The vibe here veers more spaghetti western than John Ford, I thought.
Right. Yeah, John Ford is a way more thoughtful and cinematic director. Yeah.
I
Spaghetti westerns are a lot more action.
mhm.
What's that one? The good and the good, the bad, and the ugly.
I
That
think
kind of stuff.
okay. Good stuff. Yeah, I would like DC Finest to be available as a downloadable and purchasable option. I would get all DC Finest that way, skipping on some now. Don't like to depend on subscriptions. I completely understand that. Maybe I can ask Omar again to see if he can talk to our friends over at DC and what their plans are, because I'm not sure of what their full plans are on digitization, although we have brought it to them at points in time. Love this Western Finest. DC needs to bring more of the Western characters by DC Finest. Also, hit that like button. Much appreciated, Xbox by Degrees. I think we went over that a little bit when we talked about the ranking. Jason Miller says a Western one was an easier read than the others. I think that some of these stories only have 3, 4, 5 panels. In most moments like this, where you're not worried about a bazillion words on the page, even though a lot of the panels are, this is still just one particular section of the story. We haven't gotten to the point of, molding and breaking through panels, I think, quite yet. But a lot of the stories, short, succinct, 6 pages, 8 pages. It definitely makes up for a nice read, a nicer read than some of the other Silver Age stories that we've read, like
Well, and it's not even Silver Age. Like this is Bronze Age
right?
material, which makes a big difference. Like it is easier to read in that sense because it's just later. The other genre books that we've been reading are from the 50s and 60s.
I think you are indeed.
I think, right?
Yep.
Right?
Yeah. Yep. Yes, indeed. Lance, the library. Hey, Dom, Curtis, and chat didn't know there was a stream going. We're back in session and on schedule, Lance, and very happy about that. Let's see. Highly suggest the Sam Peckinpah westerns to Dom, particularly Pat Garrett, Billy the Kid, and Bring Me the Head of Alfredo Garcia. Great 70s westerns.
I have not seen those ones. That would be good. I'll have to check those out.
I am going to write that down, Nick. Thank you so much. Most of the knowledge that I have on westerns are through reading history textbooks and also writing small essays on the frontier. Um, I remember when we went over through the first time, anyways, for me, more so than, oh, this is who Jesse James is, was an AP US history where we briefly mentioned it, but it wasn't like a huge talking point. I don't believe, at least when I took the AP test, there were any questions related to the frontier. So it'll come at some point for sure. And yes, that's the problem with historical characters. If they're strongly based on the real person, they're not necessarily as interesting as other fictional characters. I think that is very true. I need to get read. I read the first issue of Redcoat. A lot of people agreeing. This is the brand new book with Jeff Johns and Brian Hitch over at, or relatively brand new, over at Ghost Machine. I've only read the first issue. I have not read the rest yet, but I will at some point. I still need to get the deluxe of it that just came out earlier this month. What if he encounters an immovable object? Jonah Hex had a movie, but that might count against him. I've not heard great things about the movie, but I've heard people review the movie, so you know, I guess that, indeed, yeah, indeed counts. We've got, yeah, Ernesto Composer, who says, I'm thankful for DC Finest for introducing me to those stories around the tentpole ones I would have never read that I thoroughly enjoy. I completely agree. Yeah, we got some talk on actually using some of those real life historical figures in these books. Talking about, yeah, Ronald Reagan and Obama being in Flashpoint and the New 52. Yeah, horror was also Bronze Age. You are indeed correct on that. And is that it on that front? I think that's all we have for Western, Kurtis. If that is all right with you, as we move on to
I think it's time we moved on to the next one.
we like this book. That's just telling you guys we like this book. But I think I like this book even more so than the DC Finest Western book. And of course, this is the 5th installment of the Batman line from DC, or Detective Comics Comics. Featuring, they have it odd on the years because they actually, this is supposed to go up to January 1989, so there must have been a mistake on that end before they told the people over there. At least that's what, yeah, 1989, issue number 429 of Batman came out. So these are covering the months from August 1988 to January 1989 for Batman, A Death in the Family, featuring a whole host of creators, including Alan Grant, Norm Brayfogle, Jim Starlin, Jim Aparo, Bernie Wrightson, and Mike Barrett. So we have a whole lot to talk about. This is going to collect issues 423 through 429 and annual issue number 12, Batman the Cult issues 1 through 4, and Detective Comics 590 through 595, and annual number 1. And this is not a small one as well. This is a 640 pager, just as most of the other Batman volumes we've gotten. Batman volumes seem to be buffed up in size and as big as they can be. But yes,
just one point is that even though it says January 1989, that's the cover date. It would have still been released in 1988.
Okay, that's on me, folks. My bad. I read wrong. Okay, I will keep that in. I remember when I first started actually collecting single issues. This is just a side note before we actually talk about the stories in here overall in general. I remember picking up, I think it was Doomsday Clock issue number 1. Now, it was around the time that I actually started buying comics for myself, buying single issues. And I noticed that on the front of the book, it actually had, you know, like the cover date, as you were mentioning, Kurtis, and it was 2 months ahead. I was like, wait, didn't this book get published beforehand? And I asked somebody on Reddit, and they said, no, like that's how cover date works. It's typically, you know, 2 or 3 months after the actual publication date. I was like, oh, I didn't know that was a thing in comics.
It's because of newsstand. That was the date at which the newsstand was allowed to return magazines to the publisher for a refund.
Oh, okay. I did not know that. You learn something new every day. And today I learned something new. Thank you guys. And yes, it is strike one indeed for me. Um, so yeah.
Um, the dates on the spine are important as well, like the months,
Hmm.
because we're going to have two volumes of Batman that are going to be completely in 1988, and we
Hmm.
need to know which order they go in. So
Right.
the months indicate which order they are to be
Right.
read in.
Because we don't have volume numbers on these. Um, we only have the years, and that is just how they are rolling along with the DC Finest. But yes, there is a whole bunch to talk about in this particular volume. We have it starting off with a Mike Baron story, which is sort of like a whodunit detective story from Bruce, written by, like I mentioned earlier, Mike Baron, where he is invited to a deacon Slade Estate where it's murder mystery weekend. Somebody ends up actually being dead onto the ground, and Batman needs to intervene and figure out, well, who is the one spoiling this particular dinner party, and if this is actually a little bit of foreshadowing. At least that's how I read it anyways, before we get into the later portions of the book where we actually get a deacon thrown into the midst of this at all as well. We also have a Detective Comics annual that is part of a larger annual that we've already read, Kurtis, with Fables. We've read the Green Arrow portion of this annual because it was collected in the DC Finest Green Arrow bits, but we didn't get to see the Batman of it all. And this is a story where we deal with Talia al Ghul and her relationship between uh, Batman and whatnot. Or am I getting this right, man? Gosh, guys. Yes, it is indeed Talia. And he also has to deal with some of the fallout. And remember, like, this was published after the Son of the Demon storyline, so there was still a lot of weight going on, while being connected specifically to the question with Dennis O'Neil and, of course, Green Arrow with Mike Grell. So you have those two instances of going on. But as all you might know, this is the finale of the Jason Todd as Robin bits, as we finally get back to the back and forth between the regular Batman book and also Detective Comics. We learn more about Jason Todd's life. He is growing older. He's seeing some of his companions, his colleagues' grades slip. And he's also dealt with, slice of life questions of, these are people that I know, they want bigger grades. What am I ever going to do about them? But you also see how he handles moments like that. He's the guy in good moral standing here. He is somebody who is not willing to waver for different grades just because he wants to. But we also see him get thrown in with some life questions as well. As we all know, Batman has a very staunch no killing rule, a no killing rule that people have been debating for the last 70 plus years. That it's existed into the pages of these comics. He lets a guy slip in one of these stories where Felipe, the guy who is just a part of Gotham, gets spooked by Robin, and he holds no weight, and that is something that gets onto the case sort of Batman. And at the same time, you also have some of these Detective Comics stories. One of them I always am shocked at in particular, I remember texting one of my friends about this, was a case where somebody outside of the United States and the continent goes to Gotham, murder some people, and Jim Gordon, ever being the case, tells Batman, hey, we need to figure out who this criminal is. And that criminal, Batman has to chase him all the way to England, all the way over into Europe. And Bruce, through a lot of fighting, a lot of punching, finds out who the head honcho, even though this isn't a Western story, I know, is part of that group. And unfortunately, he has to entangle himself with that particular particular person, that particular character, and we find out, oh, that's why they decide to do it. We find out, oh, like, you guys are doing bad stuff to us, so why can't we do bad stuff to you? And that question is thrown out there. We can obviously talk about it more later on. But I think the thing that most people are probably going to be, just as the Killing Joke and the Son of the Demon were in the previous Batman volume chronologically, a lot of people are going to be very, very much so brought into this because of the Batman the Cult storyline, the 1 through 4 issues, along with Batman A Death in the Family, which are two particularly different stories, both featuring Jason Todd as Robin, with two particularly different sort of pitches as far as, oh, this is how the stories are indeed concerned. Batman the Cult, obviously, it's a Bernie Wrightson and Jim Starlin 4-issue series where we get to see Deacon Blackfire capturing Batman and reigning over Gotham, using sort of these, using his powers to ensure that, oh, can I actually bring a city under my control here? Horror-esque story that feels very reminiscent of, at least paneling-wise anyways, this feels like we're going to try to capture the Dark Knight's Batman the Dark Knight Returns' tone, especially through
100%. Absolutely.
a
Yeah.
lot of the way that the panels are shown, like when the media is talking, when the spokespeople are talking, it's, wow, we are trying to evoke the memories of Frank Miller's 4-issue piece on Batman. And of course, before we delve into it, we have the unfortunate death of Jason Todd and the infamous story of A Death in the Family, where through the capers of a Joker being the UN ambassador to Iran, which feels like a very, very weird thing to talk about in retrospect, because a lot of people have memed it to heck ever since the existence of Reddit, and through a vote that decided and swayed to wipe off a Robin off the face of the earth. This ends, of course, one of the very long and tragic story of Jason Todd's downfall, and also the career, if you will, of Jim Starlin before he gets the next issue after this. So not issue 429 of Batman, but 430 of Batman is the last of Jim Starlin's run on the Caped Crusader. So we have a lot to talk about, Kurtis, and I have no idea where you want to start, because there is a billion, just like I feel like in the Western, a whole bunch of stories. There's a lot of Batman to discuss here.
Well, I do want to just piggyback on what you were saying about the cults. And maybe we can talk about that one a little bit.
Yes.
It really does feel like they were trying to, like they were saying, we had a huge hit with Dark Knight Returns. How can we evoke that same feeling? Which I don't think you can. It's a classic for a reason. But they definitely, like, I really, really like Bernie Wrightson,
Same here.
and I think that I feel like this book didn't quite feel like the Bernie Wrightson that I'm used to.
No.
And I think he was purposely, and whether it was editorially mandated or not, he definitely was trying to channel Frank Miller the best he could. Not just with the paneling, but a lot of the compositions and a lot of the way that the just the flow of action, like a lot of it felt just very Frank Miller in general. Um, which wasn't a bad thing. I think it worked for the sake of the story. Jim Starlin's always amazing. I really like him. But he and Bernie Wrightson did a Marvel book together called Hulk and Thing. I think it's called Hard Knocks. It's in one of the Epic collections. And it looks very, very different. So if you want a more classic kind of Bernie Wrightson looking book, that's the one. You're looking it up right now, Dom?
I am looking it up right now. Hulk and Thing, Bernie Wrightson. I somehow got onto the Bruce Jones of it all. Yeah, Marvel graphic novel, 1982. And yes, yeah, by Jim Star. They misspelled Bernie Wrightson's name on the front cover. It's funny.
What's it called?
um, It's just called Marvel graphic novel. 1982 is what I'm seeing on
It's
the.
got it's got a different name to it. I can't remember what it is, but yeah, Bernie writes in sometimes he goes by both. Sometimes he has an E on the end of his
Oh,
name, sometimes it's just
okay.
I. That's not a misspelling. It just kind of goes back and forth depending on what he feels like, I guess.
Oh,
I'm not
okay. I
sure
did not know
exactly.
that.
Um, the
The big change is what it's called, by the way. Big change.
big changes. Yeah, yeah, that's right. Big changes. Which is really good. It's actually got a lot of humor in it as well. It's a very, very different book than this one. The story in the cult reads a horror,
Mm-hmm.
like a horror movie, man, what's the movie where the government declares that there's no laws for 24 hours? What's that series called? Um,
Uh,
like I can't, the name escapes me at the moment. Someone in the chat will know.
please let us know.
And then everybody just goes on a killing spree for the day. And that's kind of what this
The
reminds me of,
Purge,
like the
right?
whole Oh,
Is
the
it?
Purge. Yeah, 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 that's right. Purge. Yep. This story reminds me of that, where the whole town just goes nuts and just there's complete lawlessness the entire time. And Batman, yeah, the chat's chiming in now that it, yeah, definitely the Purge. And it's great. It adds this sense of drama, but I was surprised at how graphically violent it is. And I know that like comics were pushing the boundaries at this point. Dark Knight Returns definitely was one of the ones that was pushing the boundaries in terms of
Mm-hmm.
what could be shown or how much violence we're going to put in here. And The Purge just kind of ramps it up. We have decapitations and all this kind of stuff, and like they're not
Mm-hmm.
afraid to show it. And the comic code, I think, was just getting a little bit more lax. People weren't paying as much attention to it. And part of me is like, okay, let's see what we can do. And obviously there's far worse stuff now because every generation pushes the boundaries
Mm-hmm.
just a little bit more, a little bit more. And so like looking at it now, it's like this was probably pretty tame compared to like what's that comic, The Crossed or whatever
Yep.
and that kind of stuff. Or like what the boys was doing and all that kind of stuff. But back then, I'm sure this was pretty shocking, and it probably had I don't know if it got a mature warning content on there, but it probably should have.
Yeah, we don't
But the
even get a mature
Batman,
content on the back
yeah,
of this book, and I was surprised.
the Batman issues themselves were actually getting a lot more mature as well as we see this descent of Jason Todd.
Mm-hmm.
Um, through these issues, especially as he is also pushing the envelope as what is acceptable. And you talked about the death of that mob boss, Felipe,
Mm-hmm.
who falls like 20 stories from his penthouse suite, his penthouse apartment.
Yeah.
Um, you say that he slipped and Robin didn't do anything to save him, but that is not said at all. It's not explicitly said. It's purposely left so that you are wondering if Robin actually pushed him off the ledge himself. And I think he did. Because there's a guardrail. There's a guardrail that comes up to over like
Oh,
past Felipe's waist.
over the
There's
right,
no
right.
way that he would slip and fall over that himself. Absolutely 100% Robin pushed him and and broke that cardinal rule that Batman has held sacred for so many years. And that sets off this whole chain of events that leads him onto this path of destruction and carelessness that leads him right directly to the Joker. And and I wonder, I know that there was the whole phone thing to phone in to see whether Jason Todd lives or dies, but I kind of think that Jason Todd needed to be taken out of the picture, whether he lived or died anyway, because this is going like he crossed that line. And I don't think there's any reconciliation between him and Batman, nor is there going to be any reconciliation with himself. Like once you do that, he's not going to go back to the plucky Robin that we all knew from before. So he kind of needs to be his own character at this point. And whether, yeah, so in this case, he died, but he could have also lived, but then he would have probably needed to be written out of the story
Hmm.
and given his own book, and gone on his own path, kind of like how Dick Grayson did with Nightwing.
Through a very different lens of looking at life than Dick
Yeah.
Grayson for sure. Because the next issue that we mentioned the Felipe part of it, because his partner in the next issue gets there's a lot of that rubble that gets
Yeah,
on
we just
top of him.
passed the picture in the in the little
Indeed,
video there.
yeah.
But yeah, he gets crushed under a mountain of scrapped
Mm-hmm.
vehicles. And but that one, he meets his comeuppance in the typical Batman way, where Batman doesn't actually do it. He just it's just circumstance or whatever. Um, but that's a far cry from what happened to Felipe, which was, actual intentional
Actual
murder
right. Yeah, that
on
that
Robin's
last
part.
panel killed me. Like where you see the faces of Bruce and Jason through their masks, and Batman is sort of like Bruce has like sort of this like stern look, while Jason just like has this like sort of worrying, what the heck is going on, like kind of confused type of look before he leaves, and you go I think at that point like has this man gone far? Like, is he too far gone? Is this kid okay? What's going on through his head? And he leaves the scene as Batman is throwing the gun away. And those emotional moments, and this is sort of something that I appreciate now, through the last couple of DC Finest. This entire like 19 like post crisis, like up until we get to his actual death, is just a sort of like fantastic, I think, opera story of getting to see the rise and fall of this one particular character, um, in a way that I never would have imagined that we've been, presented through with these stories, as we get to see, like, the highs of, oh, he's learning to be raw. He has this sort of like, okay, can we make him a little bit jolly, but through a lot of emotional baggage, through his very tight connections with Two-Face, even
Mhm.
as early as him stealing the tires of the Batmobile, uh, to a lot of very dubious moments. Even though, like, I want to see him succeed, you get to see him be a hero. He definitely has this attachment to him, that I never thought that I'd have this sort of like particular look at the character, because again, like a lot of the stories that I'm used to with Jason are, this is him as like sort of this like vigilante who goes outside of the law and wants to, cap Bruce for everything that he's done to him. This is somebody that I feel extraordinarily like bad for, just in the case of seeing him tumble away every single issue from where he's, supposed to be like the, okay, like I'm the second half of the dynamic duo of Batman and Robin, and I'm, protecting Gotham and its citizens through what he believes is the, like heroic ideals, and that, okay, like I'm going to save as many people as I can. But he clearly has a different agency than what pops up with Dick Grayson, before him. And I think I can sort of now like understand and see why people were apprehensive, maybe, at the start to begin with for this character. I find his character incredibly compelling, but I also like now I think fully understand where people are coming from when they say, "Oh, like yeah, we want to see, uh, we don't want to see this guy anymore."
Yeah. Yeah, overall, I think definitely the strongest story in this book. Um, well, that's a hard one. I was going to say Death in the Family, but I think actually maybe the strongest story is The Cult. Um, but for a very different purpose. I mean, it's a one-shot, fully formed story. And then Death in the Family has this gimmick of the phone-in thing that I think kind of ruins the momentum of the story. If they hadn't put that phone ad in there
Mm-hmm.
and maybe stuck it at the back, it would have been a better story because it would just flow. And all of a sudden, we're reading these stories, and it's like, "Hey guys, you get to decide, choose your own adventure." And it's like, "No, come on, guys." I would have preferred them stick the ad at the back. But and then there's the goofiness of the Joker
Yep.
just becoming a consulate for whatever Middle Eastern country in the UN. It was like we're taking this and pushing it to an extreme. Um, but the story was still good, and there were some moments like I really liked the exchange between Batman and Superman in there, where they talked together about Robin's passing and such. Like, there's some good moments. Um, and the Joker is just brutal. This story is undoubtedly going to be in a Joker DC Finest
We will
because
when
it's one of
yeah.
his most iconic moments with the crowbar.
Oh, indeed. The you get to see like just how violent he is in terms of, hey, I finally got a chance to we got Robin here in the Wayside. Now, before I read this particular story, and this isn't the first time I've read this story. I watched the movie adaptation, if you will, with because it's part of the Under the Red Hood movie that came out about 2 decades ago. It's been 2 decades since that movie's come out. Crazy. Where you just get to see like him slamming and slamming it down on Jason before a building explodes. It it hurts to see characters like fall like this, and it's also, I think, crazier for me to see that, like, because we don't get a new Robin up until well, it's gonna be very soon when we get a new Robin. It's undoubtedly gonna be after the Blind Justice DC Finest when we get to see a Lonely Place to Die, in with Tim Drake. But it's a crushing moment to see somebody completely taken out of the picture, never to come, like, not to come back for another couple of decades, because it won't be for another couple of decades until we see Jason
They
Todd
always
again.
come back.
They always do, unless you're Dan Garrett or Uncle Ben. I think is how that works, right? So it's something that, looking at this now, it reads more of a heartbreaking piece. Like, this cover, whoever designed this needs to have an A. Like, they deserve an A+ for the way that it's all black. And if you look at some of the other Batman DC Finest, typically they'll have like a blue hue, or so, like, a dark blue hue added here for the gradient. But this reads to me like a funeral. And I think that's intentionally done on DC's part to the best extent as a presentation is concerned. So I
This
just
is
want.
a good one-off volume because of that. The presentation, like I have the Death in the Family, just like small
Mm,
trade that just collects those 4 issues. This book is important because it shows the decline of Jason Todd, the downfall of Jason Todd before that. And I think that's important to inform this in this story here. So very, very good to read up on that.
I agree. I think really the only other lasting thing about the cult, like, because you mentioned, it's got great Jason material too. But man, some of these pages where you get like one panel before we're introduced to seeing like Batman hanging, and it's just like 15 or like 12 uh, panel pages of just dialogue and black backgrounds, and then you get to see, oh wow, welcome to hell. Are you actually in hell? Is the question. Um, and it's a spooky book, I think, in all of the right ways, and also, um, as we lost Kurtis, if only for a bit. It's a spooky book in all the right ways, and it is very, very. Where did Kurtis go? Guys, we lost Kurtis. He got taken in by Deacon Blackfire. Oh no. Whatever will happen. As I try to figure out what happened with my good friend, let me go ahead and see what. Oh, apparently his laptop shut on him. Let's go ahead and see what you guys are saying in the comment sections. Yes. MP860, my friend, says, I think the spine dates are based on the cover dates, but maybe they went with the December date because that's where the detective issues end, which is not a bad surmising thing. And it's also nice to see, because it would have been really awkward to have, I don't know, 1980 August 1988 And then you start with January 1989 as there he is. He's back. It
Don't know
happens.
what happened there. My laptop just decided it didn't want to be on anymore, so
I
I'm back.
I joked to the fans that you were taken in by Deacon Blackfire. And you're hanging on the ceiling with a whole bunch of bodies thrown under Gotham.
Oh
That's
man,
exactly what
brutal.
happened.
Yep.
Waiting on my Death in the Family, Finest a Ship. I've read the titular story in the first issue of the cult. Excited to read the rest. The Batman Finest post Golden Age have been very strong, in my honest
Yep.
opinion.
Very strong.
I love all of the like the from Red Skies up until Death in the Family. I think it contends for some of the strongest reads that I've gone through, from finish to end, and I want them to keep going, as quickly as possible. Death in the Family is solid, though I didn't find the stories as consistently good as the previous '80s Batman DC Finest.
I think the reason for that is the annuals.
Yep,
That murder mystery one, even though it had a pretty good story, got very ridiculous at the end. Um,
you got a demon
yeah,
thrown
it's
in
just
there
a
too.
more uneven volume from that point of view and then you get yeah the Ra's al Ghul issue and then yeah the cult is very different than um
Yeah,
it's
more
just kind
so.
of all
Yeah,
over the place.
more so totally different than the Killing Joke and other stories, I would say.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see if this line will stop before Nightfall or include it. There's no way. I will just say I don't think there's any way that they don't include Nightfall. But what I will say, and I'll get to this when at the end of the show where I tease a bit for the DC Finest poll that we have going on Monday, is that you guys will be deciding which DC Finest volume of Batman, at least if it's voted into the top whatever, uh, what uh, what indicators we'll have, to see where DC decides to go with the line. Yeah, I hope they skip Nightfall for now. It's been available before. Um, I do not have the Nightfall omnibuses. I read the Nightfall story event from Chuck Dixon. They had these super thick trade paperbacks. I think they're still in print of Nightfall. Like $20 had like 500 pages. Um, I read it through that, but I don't have the omnibuses. I know that people have Omnis 1, 2, and 3, but I think we've seen with Doom Patrol, and other stories like that, they're not immune to releasing two books in the same format, um, at the same time. Like we even have the Batman Bronze Age DC Finest coming out, the Curse of Crime Alley, also coming out around the same time that we have the Bronze Age Omnibus Volume 1.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, so very excited to get to that though. My favorite Batman finest so far is probably actually Red Skies, then Year One and Year Two, then Killing Joke. Even the Chemical Syndicate one has some great issues like the Joker stories. They're all good contenders. I think more so for me that I like '80s Batman a lot more than '40s Batman, but '40s Batman has some sway, for me with the hokey dokiness. Uh, it has, yeah, this book has, it's not short of any, like, fantastic art from a lot of creators, including Norm Brayfogle, who is on all of the Detective Finest, or sorry, gosh, Detective Comic stories. Have
And
Jim
there's
Aparo.
some great stuff.
Mhm.
The Brayfogle issues that are after Death in the Family have some incredible art there, and he takes it in a very very dramatic direction. Because the stuff that came before that, and especially like Jim Aparo, who I'm absolutely love and is a legend in his own right, stays very traditional in his storytelling and the way he moves his panels around and such. Very very constrained, but on purpose with a good flow still. But Brayfogle, he takes it and I think brings Batman a little bit more into the modern era with just the way he composes his panels, the way he decides. Yeah, let me see if I can, where's my book? There's one page in particular that I'm thinking of where, um, yeah, stuff like this one where he's playing with inset panels and the way and the shapes and that kind of stuff. Um, yeah, just stuff like here where this is all borderless panels on this one page with the monocolor. Uh, just stuff like that. Just really, really great. Yeah,
Abraham
large
Lincoln.
figure. Yep. Um, so he does a lot of really, really neat stuff. And so these stories that are at the end are very different in tone, not just with the stories because it's dealing with a lot kind of more supernatural stuff, but the way it looks is an indication of how comics are going to be crafted through the 90s, and Norm Breyfogle was leading the pack on that.
He was indeed, and we will get to see eventually in DC Finest. Get to see creators like Kelly Jones, um, co-creator of Bane, who was slipping my name, Graham Nolan. There are a lot of creators in the '90s who are going to push the envelope on this more that we will get to see. Uh, yeah, DC Finest Batman: The Death in the Family was awesome. Cult was insane. Yeah, in 1988, Batman had to deal with KG Beast, Barbara Gordon, and Jim Gordon both being traumatized by the Joker, Deacon Blackfire haunting the citizens of Gotham, and his own adopted son being died in the Fear back to back. Has he ever had a worse year?
Yeah,
Just another
probably. I mean, he's just constantly having a bad time. But I mean, the death of his partner is a big one.
for sure. Great mapping as always. There are two Batman issues I wish were in the first Catwoman DC Finals because of a crossover. I think I will. Which one are those, Carson? My brain is not braining on that one. Yeah, yeah. Even the Ayatollah Khomeini was in this volume. Oh man. Again, just seeing historical figures like that always feels. Well, it doesn't feel weird. I just never. You just never think about those character or those historical figures being in. Um, yeah, I'm happy this one isn't named A Death in the Family and Other Stories.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Now here's the maybe we can quickly gloss over on this before we get to Joker Curtis. Did you find the Joker being a UN ambassador to Iran to have racist undertones?
I don't think so. I don't think yeah, I would wonder how people would interpret that as racist. I don't think it was. I mean, there is stereotypes for sure in the way that the Middle Eastern people are portrayed and some of the things that they say. Um, which I think is part and parcel for just the cultural mood at the time. America was definitely at war with the Middle East through this era. Um, Joker becoming the UN consulate, I don't think was it was told appropriately. It had its purpose. Um, and yeah, I'm not sure. I don't think it came off that way. Not in my
It
opinion, at
just
least.
feels very
But
weird to see him in the hijab. I think is what it's called.
yeah, yeah. Well, and you could call that appropriation. Um, I'm not sure. I'm happy to be enlightened if anyone wants to share the what the undertones here are.
Yes, indeed. I would love to because it's yeah. I definitely felt like it was a part cultural appropriation on that end, but I would also love to have a conversation with anybody who is more knowledgeable in that subject than me. I will admit. Um, don't excuse Omar's conspiracy participation, Kurt.
What does that mean?
Because he was complicit in the death of the Robin who was killed in the story. Um, see, the final panels of Jason and Batman Detective Comics before Death in the Family starts are in they are indeed very very sad. We
Yep.
mentioned it earlier. Um, Let's see. Yeah, let's see. Read through. Post Crisis on Infinite Earth changed Jason character. Changed Jason Todd's character for the worse, and he needed to be removed from the story. I don't think his character is bad at all. Like I said, like it's a very compelling tale of somebody who goes from somebody who needs help in terms of his life to just an overall very different look on somebody who overtook the mantle
Yeah,
of
it's
Robin.
hard to say that it was for the worse. It was definitely changed because before that he was just a Dick Grayson clone. He was
Mm-hmm.
exactly the same as Dick Grayson. So I think the change was
Mm-hmm.
necessary. And yeah, your mileage will vary whether you like that change or not. But he did need to change,
You
I
did,
think.
yeah, and that's what I like also too with Damian Wayne. Whenever he comes later on, I know that some people aren't a fan of him, but I always will prefer characters that have different personalities and different reactions to situations than people who came before. Because at that point, you're just asking yourself, well, why can't it just be Dick Grayson again? And I think it's necessary whenever you have somebody new in the mantle um, to be different from whoever came before because it allows for a wider set of stories that you can tell, and that variety I think will give us we're not just redoing Batman golden and silver age stories. It's, oh, we can actually do something new with these characters. uh,
Yeah.
I still find it crazy. A Death in the Family just released just months after Killing Joke, and even references a few times that Bat books put Joker on the ice for a couple of years afterwards. That they did indeed.
Yeah, is a 1-2 punch of what he did to Barbara and then what he did to Jason. It's
Yeah,
like, holy cow,
yeah.
Joker is brutal.
He is a very, very bad person, but that's like calling the kettle black, right? The pot calling
Yeah.
the kettle black. Um, Crisis on Multiple Dawns. This is when Kurtis was dead. Come back, Kurtis. We will be nice to you. Always nice to Kurtis, though. Always nice. I know that this is kind of off topic, but do you know what extras the Legends Omni will have, Dom? Depending on that, I might wait for the DC Finest since the mapping seems to be better. I like the mapping for the DC Finest Legends more because they will have stories that don't have the Legends banner, like Hawkman, a couple of the Green Lantern issues, but those will be thrown into the Finest because that's the actual. They're calling it the actual reading order. The Legends Omnibus will have a whole bunch of essays, a whole bunch of behind the scenes, the making of the Legends 2 text and compilation. That will be in the Omnibus, but will not be in the DC Finest. The DC Finest will only have the stories, and if there are any additional covers that they want to throw in, that is what will be in the DC Finest. The Omnibus will just have the Legends banner stories, and they will have all the extras, like I mentioned, the behind the scenes and whatnot. Hoping those early Bronze Age stories are good because I can't decide getting between the Omnibus when it drops or waiting for the DC Finest. Let me see if I can answer any. Yeah, we are nice to Kurtis most of the time. Is that how that works? Um, yeah, drop a Saturn. Honestly, not a fan of how DC seemed to decide that Jason's rough upbringing meant that he wouldn't ever be able to truly become a hero. They made the same judgment with Stephanie years later. The Stephanie Brown portion of it all stinks because she was only Robin for a couple of months. I think you compare this to Jason Todd, who was Robin for 2 years worth of publication history, or even longer if you want to include some pre-crisis material. Um, but I think it's okay to see like Jason looks at the world differently than all of the other heroes. We even see like psychotic maniacs like Damien become better people. Um, it sucks what happened with Stephanie, what happened to her in War Games, but I think it's clear that they, at least even if only for a bit, they redeemed her in the aspect of giving her her own title as Batgirl. Unfortunately, before they decided to erase her again. I I appreciate that DC tried out something new with Jason. I think that's what I'm trying to say in the midst of all this. We got 2 years of Jason Todd being different from Dick Grayson, seeing him operate differently from Dick Grayson, having a lot more weight on his shoulders than Mr. Grayson did. And that I can appreciate. But go ahead, Curtis.
Yeah, and I can understand this opinion here for sure, of wanting to see Jason Todd come through that a better person. Um, and I think that it's I think that it's okay to go that route.
Yeah.
And have him not have reached that status. Pardon me. Because there are lots of other heroes who, like most heroes, have tragic backstories and they come out of it. And so there is a small percentage of those who don't get to that level. And it's good to see those stories too. So if Jason and Stephanie are the outliers, then that's fine.
Yeah, I agree. I can understand that. Phil Owens says so. I guess I'm the only one who doesn't like Brayfogel's art then.
Well, I can understand that because Phil Owens is an old school guy who loves the old school art,
Mm-hmm.
and like I said, Bray Fogel was definitely one leading the pack into the 90s, so I can understand why he doesn't like it.
Oh, that's more than fair. More than fair. Not for everybody, right? As is everything, pretty much. Um, So in the early DC finals, Batman 503, 504, Catwoman issue number 7, along with issue 6, should have been included. I'm gonna see if I can talk to my DC contacts about adding some particular issues for some books because they've mentioned to me that they don't want to do. Actually, I don't know if I can say this. I will relay to see if there's anything that could be done on that front with reprints, Carson. Um, I that's what I will say, and I'll add it to stuff to add to on my list. Um, where would we rank this with the DC before we move into the Joker, if only briefly, Curtis? Where would we rank this amongst your Batman ones? Where would you put this?
Wow. Oh man. Honestly, they're coming out fast enough that they're blending together, so I can't remember which stories are in which volumes. But I think I think I might put the Killing Joke at the top because I remember that story not just because of the Killing Joke story itself, but that whole volume was very, very solid. Red Skies also was very good. I might put that next. The Golden Age one, I'm going to put at the bottom of the list. And Death in the Family might be up there with Red Skies. I'm not sure if I like that one better or not. And year one and year two had some really solid stories, but I think the the retro goofiness of the detective stories in that one brought it down for me because although they were good fun issues, it doesn't hit the same way as the more mature tone.
Completely understandable in that front. I think where I would rank this on my tops, the thing that brings that, even though I tell people that, like, like this is, I think, the best DC finest that you can probably get for whatever your money's worth is worth. Year two is the thing that brings that book down for me because I am not the biggest fan of Batman Year Two. I think where I would place this is right under, like, I think Killing Joke and Other Stories would probably be in the tops objectively as far as like Batman comics are concerned. It's got Son of the Demon in it. I really really like the KGB stuff in there too. That's when you've got like Alan Grant and Norm Brayfogle just kicking all kinds of butt. I think this would probably end up being a number 3 for me because I also liked Red Skies a lot. I think Red Skies tonally is better than the stuff in this book, but Death in the Family I think is a solid 3 for me. In terms of me saying this, oh, this is what I think about the stories and whatnot. So I think I'll put it there. Um,
Yep, that sounds about right.
yeah. Was able to cancel the Legends Omnibus, replace it with the DC Finest. I don't know if they're ever gonna make a Legends Deluxe. It seems like they're really intent on placing out that omnibus in a little later this year. Um, but we'll see. Let me see if I can get to one more comment. It's also interesting seeing the gradually changing attitudes over Batman having a child sidekick in the 80s compared to the 40s. The 80s called it more into question. And that
Yep.
is indeed for, yeah, Omar will fire Tom for that year. He knows it. We made this joke in the DC Finest stream. Uh, it's okay though. I'll happily accept me being fired over me getting brutally murdered by the Joker with a crowbar. So I'll take that. I'll take that happily in stride. All right, let's go ahead and move on real quick to the last of these DC fives. Man, that's a lot of Batman. Well, we have the Joker in town and in tow for this particular volume, with a whole amount of different stories ranging from a whole different set of creators, collecting Batman 251, 260, 286, 291 through 294, and 321, Detective Comics 475 through 476, and issue 504, Justice League of America issue number 77, Wonder Woman issues 280 to 283, The Brave and the Bold 111, 118, 190, 129 to 130, and 141, and Joker issues 1 through 10. Issue number 10 only previously being in that Joker omnibus that came out most recently before, or the Joker Bronze Age omnibus that was most recently reprinted. And man, when I mean a variety of stories, there are a whole variety of stories that are in this DC Finest, whether he is going up against Helena Wayne of Earth 2 in the case of the Wonder Woman backups, or even earlier on when he faces the Justice League of America the first time and getting somebody fired because of it. And I think I'll put it to a little bit of some mild spoilers. But we do kick it off with the Justice League of America story, where we get to see Black Canary and Green Arrow trying to figure out, well, there's something weird that's operating here. And next thing you know, the whole entire Justice League is on the tracks for somebody inside of their headquarters that wants to how do I word this correctly? We're seeing Batman and all of these other leaguers trying to figure out what exactly is going on and is wrong. And the next thing you know, somebody has to unfortunately take the fall for it, and that is indeed where we do get the Snapper Car of it all, who does unfortunately get kicked out of the Justice League. And interestingly enough, Joker issue number 10 was also in the Hashik collection of the 70s series, so I did not know that. Thank you for saying that, Partworks Comics reader. And then we also move on to other Silver Age, other Silver Age stories, or tail end Silver Age, getting into Bronze Age stories with the arguably the most actually no, this is all Bronze Age, so I misspoke there. Arguably the most infamous Joker cover, drawn by the legendary Neil Adams himself, in an issue that I only know because of somebody that I used to know on Discord, and also somebody at my comic shop who allowed me to read a copy of theirs. This is Batman issue 251 at the hands of Dennis O'Neil and Neil Adams, as legendary as you can get when you talk about a comic book, and in dealing with a story that centers around him getting, or Batman getting, a Joker card, and the next thing that you know, the Joker is free. He is free from prison, and Joker wants to kill a couple of people. He wants to kill like 4 or 5 people. And he gets a funny word at the end in terms of actually managing to capture the Joker, and also has the cover to an Absolute that will come out later this year as well. In this specific Finest as well, all of these stories are centered around the Joker being the main antagonist. Even the Joker series in the mid 70s or early 70s, I suppose, features the Joker as the main star in all of these stories. And in that way, this is the first DC Finest that we see the Joker, or any villainous character, getting the spotlight, as opposed to the heroic instances of, other different points in time. We have plenty of stories here that also feature a whole host of other characters, including not only the Justice League of America, but also Catwoman, Two-Face, where he gets into a very awkward fight with, that I found very amusing. We also, indeed, like I mentioned earlier, Helena Wayne, Huntress from Earth 2, who is also a part of this book as part of the secondary Wonder Woman issue stories. There is next to no Wonder Woman aside from her appearances in the Justice League of America. but this is also where we get to see her. This is the first laugh. This is the first laugh of her against the Joker in that way. I find this to be interesting because I don't know if I'm necessarily into reading the Joker as sort of like, oh, it's a one-off. Let's see what's happening in his side of Gotham. I find, just as he does and a lot of other Batman villains, maybe with the exception of Poison Ivy very recently, and it's only because of G. Willow Wilson, I find a lot of these stories to be your mileage will definitely vary in all of these. Some of them I found quite interesting, and some others I have just gone, couldn't I have just read this in a Dennis O'Neil Batman volume or a Gardner Fox-esque Justice League of America volume? Or in the case of the Huntress backup stories, I was even surprised to see Paul Levitz and Joe Staton on these stories and doing it all there. And in that way, this was just a very weird read for me. Even though I like some of the stories, but it's less so of the fact that I like them, and more so that why couldn't I have read Jerry Conway and Batman? But Kurtis, I would like to know what your thoughts were on this particular DC Finest, and if you enjoyed this compilation of stories, or if you would have thought otherwise.
This, I think you nailed it on the head. It's a hodgepodge. Do we need to have a Joker DC Finest? And you say the same thing about like the Doctor Doom Epic collections and that kind of stuff. It's like villains typically haven't had their own series because they're just not the character wise they just can't hold their own. There are some villains who are way more able to hold their own than others and be more fleshed out characters. But when you have a villain who only pops up in a Batman comic maybe once a year, maybe not as often as that, you don't get that much character development. And so this book has the Joker as kind of just a two-dimensional character, and that's about it. And so weaving your way through all of those issues is a little difficult. Now, I will say though, um, that the Joker in this era, at this point, is a very fun character, and his issues are fun. They have good gimmicks, and he has good plots. It just gets a little tiresome all reading them all in a row. The series I really like because it takes Batman out of the picture and lets Joker explore a little bit more, just his madness without the worry of Batman bringing him down the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
So that's nice. And I did like those. I like those two security guards that kind of were the running gags throughout those early issues. Those were fun. And seeing Elton John pop up in
Yep.
that 10th issue is also really funny. It's like, what? I didn't even understand why he was there. They didn't like
Call
he's
me
not playing
Lou.
himself or
Call me
anything.
Lou, baby Lou Cipher, baby booby sweetie. Have I got a deal for you?
So weird. Yeah, but it was good. Um, and then there are a few things that I could have lived without. Like there's the one story near the end where it's like it's who killed Batman,
Mm-hmm.
and it's telling the point of view of different villains, but it's like one villain per issue. So there's three whole issues in there that don't have Joker in them at all.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not till the fourth issue where we get his point of view. And I understand if they want to include every Joker appearance, then we need those four issues for context. But like that other person was pointing out, they decided to skip over in the Catwoman Epic Collection some essential issues in a crossover story, um, because they weren't part of the Catwoman thing. So it's like they could have easily just given us that last issue here of the Joker.
Yep.
But oh well. All of those issues are going to be double dipped in a Batman DC
Oh,
Finest at
they
some
will.
point.
I have no doubt that whenever we get to that Batman DC Finest, even if I have no idea. So here's the thing: I have no idea if they'd throw in the Joker, 10 issue series in a DC Finest collection as well, just because some of those stories don't have Batman in it, even though it is a Batman central character. You don't
None of them
necessarily.
have Batman in it, so
Right.
I don't think that they would.
Right. So, I have no idea if it's ever going to get to that point, but it's something that I would like to see if they manage to sneak it in or
Yeah.
not. This actually also maybe it will be the only DC Finest that we ever get to see the Joker, though that Joker series in. I also like that tenth issue just because of like you talked about some of the gimmicks. I like the fact that like in this era, Joker couldn't be withheld by the lasso of truth, where he pretty much just explains, wait, no, like
That
it.
was interesting. They say that he says that he's schizophrenic.
Mhm.
And because of that, he doesn't know exactly what is reality or what is a lie or whatever, because one of his alternate personalities completely believes it to be truth. So, but is that I don't think that that's a mental illness that they explore at all any
No.
other time. They just kind of just throw it out there. And that's part of what makes comics in the 60s the thing is they just kind of throw things out there. Their explanations of things are ridiculous and it's like, well, you just got to run with it.
It's also a pretty dark end for Diana in that story as well, because he wraps her up in the lasso and she ends up dead on the Statue of
He
Liberty.
he lynches her and is like, "Holy cow, what?"
The I did not know that comics would be like they made it as kid friendly as you could with that, with the silhouette
Yeah.
of her like hanging over the Statue of Liberty. But I have in my mind, I'm just like, this was published with the
Yeah.
Comics Code Authority like overseeing everything. How does that
Yeah.
happen?
I know. It's brutal. Yeah. Um, the highlight in here, I think, is definitely the Steve Englehart issues at the end, the
Mm-hmm.
laughing fish,
Yep.
which is famously adapted into one of the greatest episodes of Batman the Animated
Mm-hmm.
Series, and not really the same story, just mildly adapted, loosely adapted, but those stories there with who's the artist on that? Um, how come I can't remember his name now? He's the guy that did the Saber comic in the 80s. Come on. I'm looking at the wrong book. Where's my Joker book?
I'm trying to also
Anyway, those issues are really,
Marshall
really,
Rogers, right?
really great. Marshall Rogers. Oh yeah, no, that's not who did the Saber story, but no, yeah, Marshall Rogers. Marshall Rogers is an interesting artist because he doesn't stick to the same conventions as other artists in the time. And I remember I first read I first learned of him when he was working with Steve Englehart on Silver Surfer. And he gave Silver Surfer such a different look. Yeah, thank you everybody in the chat. Um, and Marshall Rogers doesn't lean into things like heavy shadows and cross hatching and feathering like a lot of typical inkers do. I think he inks his own work in this, and it gives it such a different look. And it's I think it's really good. And he packs in the panels. He puts in so many panels per page, and I think you really get a bang for your buck when you read those through. And Steve Englehart does some really weird stuff. His work, his short, brief run on Batman here is known as Strange Apparitions, and those 8 issues or whatever it is were
Mm-hmm.
collected into this little thin trade, and that just standing on its own is really really good stuff. I really like that collection of stories. Some of the few Batman traits that I have. So to have
They're
some of
good.
those stories here in this collection is a real treat.
Mhm.
But other than that, I would say that this is definitely my least favorite out of the 3 books that we read
Yep,
this month.
I agree. I also found it interesting. I love that you brought up Marshall Rogers, because when the DC director of their collected editions line was watching the entire show for the top 60 reveals, and he told me to read more Marshall Rogers Batman. It was one of his favorite Batman, overall favorite Batman runs. And I just said, all right, if the guy in charge of this department is telling me to read a comic, maybe I probably should read it at some point. I
Yeah,
would love to
it's
get
good stuff.
I would love to get that Strange Apparitions back in the DC Finest form, so I can have it on my shelf. and whatnot. But this is, yeah, just an interesting mix of stories. Some of them land, some of them don't. Some of them are very dark. Well, not as dark as I thought, but less dark than what they decide to do with the character in the mid late 80s. I will just say that, as we don't,
Yeah.
yeah, we don't get to the we're gonna traumatize and also kill some people that are a part of your life. As yeah, we get to see what you guys are doing, talking in the comment section. I believe my dad is having fun with his friend on a phone call. I think that's I think that's what the background noise is. Um, let's see. Pass on this volume since you already have the Joker Bronze Age Omni, but I will be very interested in what the subsequent volume contains. I think Kurtis also probably said it well. You need to have death in the family and Killing Joke. I think for whatever that next volume is from 82 to like 88. I would not see why those stories wouldn't be included as well. This, if you already have the Omni for Bronze Age Joker, don't get the DC Finest. They're the exact same content, exact same reading order, exact same mapping and whatnot. Let's see.
And
Yep.
this, so the Omni has obviously more content than this,
Yes.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Does it have stuff that's before this book or stuff that's after this
It's the
book?
same. It starts at the same spot.
So it has more stuff after it?
Yes, more stuff after it.
Okay.
But it doesn't collect anything after, because it's Bronze Age, right? So it doesn't have anything after Post Crisis on Infinite Earths material. Yeah, looking forward to the Bronze Age Batman DC Finest whenever they decide to get that out, get them all. I love that mentality. Second finest that I've skipped, Static. I have this material in Milestone Compendiums, this and several Joker themed volumes. He's a very, very cursed. Joker's a very, very, I'll just say, blessed individual to be the most infamous and famous simultaneously of the of the Rogues Gallery of Batman. Had to double dip with the Omnis, so yeah, just a lot of double dipping. Had to say no to villain centric volume from Phil. The two exceptions being Secret Society supervillains and Secret Team Up, supervillain team up from Marvel. Joker getting a Firestorm or getting a DC Finds with Firestorm is crazy, but never say never. Well, the other thing too is that DC has these files on hand to print out. I am going to heavily assume that any material, whether it's the Jerry Conway or the John Ostrander bits of Firestorm the Nuclear Man, those would have to be remastered before pushing out any more work. So I'll assume that, yeah, they already have
Absolutely.
these files on
Yeah.
hand. Might as well print it out, right? Interesting how in some ways Death of the Family brought Joker back to his homicidal golden age roots, considering how fun and wacky he was in the Silver and Bronze Age. But we get to see him do some other bad stuff in the Silver Age and Bronze Age, though. We get a mix of both. Let's see. Hi guys, how is everyone doing? I've missed a bunch of these lately. Maybe there's a case to be made for that bell icon. Yes, indeed. If you have not yet indeed subbed, we do these every single month. We're going to be back on the last Friday of June, so can't wait for that one. Yeah, issue number 10. Never stop print up until the Joker Omni. Edwin is indeed right. And yes, going to take off from Nicola. Thanks for the stream down, Curtis, so I can share everybody. Jaggernaut, hope you're doing well. Another move for DC to put out that omnibus soon. And you also got Doom getting an epic collection, as Curtis also very much knows. So not immune to Big Two pushing out villains volumes. Now, want to quickly get to the books that we will be talking about in the next of these streams. The first of which is the continuation of Gail Simone's era, or Gail Simone's period of time writing Wonder Woman, with Dawn Before Darkness, issues 36 through 44 and 600, Secret 6, 10 through 14, Blackest Night Wonder Woman 1 through 3, and a story from DC Universe Halloween Special, Haunted or Hoax, for this one. Let me see if I can pull up. Yeah, the next one. We talked about this earlier a little bit too. Sergeant Rock, The Rock of Easy Company, 19th of May. GI Combat, issue number 68, and Our Army at War, issues 81 through 122. And then this is totally not the Sergeant Rock the Rock of Easy Code. This is Dead Man. How many times can a guy die? Arnold Drake, Jack Miller, and Neil Adams. Collecting all of those issues as you see on screen. And then Supergirl, Die, and Let Live from 1998, 1989. Whenever we get a chance to talk about that, we will. And before we get off on this particular volume, I would like to quickly talk about the upcoming poll. Um, Upcoming poll that is coming out on Monday. For the DC Finest, Kurtis and I will be doing this at 2:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, or 5:30 Eastern Time, wherever you might live in the world. So again, Monday on June the 1st. You guys will be doing two things. We've been working collaboratively with consultation from DC on this one, so it's a little bit different from some of the other polls that we've done. It's going to be split into two parts. One part is going to be us voting on lines that haven't existed. Might be some surprises in there. And the other portion of the poll is going to be you deciding which volumes DC should print out for their catalog.
This is going to be an exciting poll, and I think that the most exciting because it's not just one of those wish list kind of things. This is actually real input that will be passed along. Like DC asked for this, so this is important that everybody sit up and pay attention and cast your vote because there's a rare opportunity where we get to determine the future of books as intricately as this. So that's very cool.
It is indeed, and the consultation, everything that we've been doing, on the behind the scenes, getting to talk with some of the editors for these books as well, and getting their input on, should this be a DC Finest? Would you ever do a collection of this? What's the likelihood on placing these particular issues? Not going to be a mapping show, but this is going to be you and your guys' opportunity. Well, partly a mapping show because obviously you need to have maps for lines that don't exist. But this is going to be your guys' opportunity to tell DC, hey, we don't have a DC Finest of early 2000s Batman, and I really want to read Ed Brubaker and Brian K. Vaughan and their times on Batman. Or in the case of, we don't have, I'll bring in, okay, let's just say Zatanna, because I don't think she has a line she does not have a line for DC Finest yet. You want to tell DC, hey, we don't have a Zatanna line yet. This is going to be your chance and opportunity to tell DC that will be available. And more information, of course, will be told on Monday. We are still setting things up. I'm still setting up the presentation and the slides for the show, but it's going to look great, and I can't wait for you guys to see it all.
I am casting my vote for Captain Carrot and his amazing zoo crew.
There we go. You already know what one portion of Kurtis's voting booth looks like indeed. And before we do sign off, I do want to get to two quick questions. Did you do an overview on the Wonder Woman DC Finest yet? Yes, I did. I talked. It's on near mint condition, and I talked a little bit. I wish that I had been maybe a little bit clearer on. I guess the impromptu of it all, of me talking about the book, but it does not have recaps for Secret Six or for Blackest Night that I think would have enhanced some of the stories in there to give people appropriate context for that. Because I don't know if anybody has maybe somebody out there in the world has never read an issue of Gail Simone's Secret Six. I think stuff
That's
like
me.
There you go. That's Kurtis. So we'll be able to talk about that next month. And then Phil Owens, a question for Kurtis and Dom real quick. Now that you have been reading DC Finest over a year, how has your opinion of DC changed? If it has at all.
I don't think that it's changed. I always you can't be in these circles and not know kind of the ins and outs, not the ins and outs, but like the general themes of DC through the years. I think for the most part, I knew what to expect going through, and it just whether it met my expectations or exceeded them was a different story. And a lot of these writers and artists have been at Marvel as well, so I'm familiar with their work and
Mhm.
know what to expect. So I think yeah, I mean, honestly, the only reason I really didn't get into DC as a kid was because you have limited funds.
Mhm.
And I knew from the trading cards I had which characters I liked, and so I spent my money on that, and that happened to be Marvel, and that set me on a path of being Marvel. And when your funds are limited, you got to put it one way or the other. But I'm happy now to be in this. I think that my opinion of DC as a current publisher has changed because as um, because they're doing something like this, and and they're saying we have a commitment to do this on the long term, which is something we don't typically haven't really typically seen from DC, who likes to be trigger happy when it comes to canceling their long running lines. So that's changed a little bit. But overall, I think, you know, I'm not surprised that I'm enjoying these. That's what I'm saying. I'm not surprised that I'm having a lot of fun reading these books.
And same here on my front. Even though I some of these books like Western, I've never read in my life. Some of these characters, I'm a lot more familiar with these because I grew up with DC as a kid. Opposite of Kurtis, and that most of the cartoons that I grew up watching were DC centric and not at all Marvel centric. But I think what it's done, it's given me more of an appreciation for eras like the Golden and Silver Age that I was very apprehensive on at first. But now, because of these, I'm less apprehensive and more open to experiencing the material that was published back in those days, and by a whole set of amazing creators that we've been able to talk about on my end. And with that, yes, we are indeed a bad influence on Kurtis, but that's, oh my goodness, why won't it click? There you go. We're not that, but that's also Eisner nominated Kurtis Finley to you, as I want to thank him for joining me once again on these awesome Friday mornings, and sometimes dipping into the noon of it all to talk with me about these books.
It is always a blast. I appreciate the invite every single month, and I'll keep doing them as long as I am able to afford buying these books.
Very, very
Yep.
glad on that front indeed. And of course, you can check out all of our thingamabobs at comic releases through all the links that James has below. We will be back on Monday at 2:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time or 5:30 Eastern Standard Time in the afternoon to talk about all of the things that you will be able to vote for on the DC Finest poll, which will be running for about a week or so. And we hope to see you there. I hope you have a wonderful day, guys. And until next time. Let's see. And